Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa, and we're here with is a very special and kind of an urgent GoldFish Report today because we need to talk about geopolitics, not exopolitics, but geopolitics today. And today, to do that, we have our friend, the futurist and author at exopolitics.com, a friend of the GoldFish Reports, Alfred Weber. Alfred, thank you for joining us today.
A pleasure.
We also have a return guest to the GoldFish Report, another friend of the GoldFish Report, Martin, who is a systems researcher and private civilian. Martin, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And of course, we have our gracious host, the ambassador of the Red Dragon family. Mr. Ambassador, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
What we're going to talk about today is it's a multitude of things, and really how this whole, I think, Agenda 21 is really kind of coming to fruition, as we heard in the President Obama's United Nations speech. We're going to talk at great length about this speech today, and we have some really great minds here to give some analysis and some critique of this. And what we're going to start with is a clip, and I'm going to screen share. And we're going to, this is a starting point for us, and we want to figure out what it is that this means. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to offer interpretation or translation of what he's saying, and also some interpretation. So here's the first clip.
Where our mouths are. And we can only realize the promise of this institution's founding to replace the ravages of war with cooperation if powerful nations, like my own, accept constraints. Sometimes I'm criticized in my own country for professing a belief in international norms and multilateral institutions, but I am convinced that in the long run, giving up some freedom of action, not giving up our ability to protect ourselves or pursue our core interests, but binding ourselves to international rules over the long term enhances our security.
Okay, that's okay. Who wants to start with this? Who wants to go first?
I can start with stating that I believe that we need to start changing the understanding what we do. What do we actually mean with the international community? Do we, as usually, talking about the United States, Great Britain, and Israel, or do we, when we talk about the international community, do we actually speak about the international community? Because I believe that this old international community is, first of all, it's a little bit, very overspoken, overused quotation. You understand? And when we talk about international peace and democracy and security, I think that United States and Obama is probably the worst spokesperson that you can find in relation to that. Of course, the United Nations, United Nations, I mean the Nobel Peace Prize, give them a peace prize before we ever had the time to do anything. And most likely it was a racist gift. And, that was the only reason why they gave it to him. But at the same time, it is also with the 444, is also the king of the south, is also fulfilling the prophecy of making a war with a bear, with the king of north, and creating a third world war. And he's talking about international safety. If the world needs international safety, I think that the United States needs to learn to, keep their business out of other people's business, because the biggest problem we have all around the world with terrorism is thanks to the United States, European Union, or NATO, which I call the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, which is basically very vicious, satanic.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Just
Sure, go right ahead, Martin.
When Obama was speaking in that little tidbit right there, he was saying that we need to have more cooperation internally in the United States, and we have to be able to recognize international rules. And what that said to me was, okay, citizens of the United States, there's going to be military vehicles driving down your driveways, they're going to be driving down your roads, and we have to do this because we have to lock down our countries because we're having an issue with international policy, and they're trying to teach us that this is normal that you're going to have military vehicles on your highways, and this is normal you're going to have military intervention in your country, because this is international law. We have to be able to control our own infrastructure. And then so by doing this, like you were talking about before, about being an example, the United States will be the example to the world as to how you should react to the international crisis that's going on, and allow these different military infrastructures to be able to be visible in your country at all times. That's what I took from that.
No, that's incredible. I'm going to go to you in a second, Alfred. But just to what you're saying, the schools, the public schools right now, some public schools in the United States are doing drills. They're not just doing drills like, a fire drill. They're doing bomb drills and active shooter drills. They are going to go into, the police are going to go into the schools with guns and weapons in front of the children. And I oppose this, by the way, when I heard about this, because, as a person with a psychology background, I don't see the research that would support a policy that would say this is safe to do, that in some way traumatizing our children is good for them, and getting them, I asked, is this Gaza that we're in?
But what they're teaching their children is the only place that's going to be safe is if you're in the military. So all children are going to want to be part of the military to carry those guns that everybody's carrying. They're seeing all the guns with all the different military.
Right. But it's also obedience, and it's also submission to authority. Alfred,
yeah.
Can you comment on that? I'm sorry, Ambassador, 1 second.
Since this is my opening statement, I request permission from the chair to give some context, because I have been following and deconstructing the entity known as Obama Soybarka now for 8 years, and he's not what he seems. Barack Obama is a legal entity that does not exist. He's what we call in the intelligence trade a legend, and it's been constructed. He is the son of Soybarka, born in Indonesia. Soybarka was the leader of an Indonesian cult, and who believes that the entity that is Soybarka is the Mahdi, the Islamic Mahdi. However, he's been taken over and is being run by a globalist kind of, I would call it, dark forces group, and at the service ultimately of a sentient, pathogenic artificial intelligence. And I just want to say this, 2 or 3 points, and this is what came up for me as I read that speech, because Obama's final destination is not yet known. He will either be, under emergency powers, the virtual dictator of the former United States, or he'll be the next Secretary General of the United States, going through Ban Ki-moon. They're kind of floating that it has to be a woman. We'll see. But the scuttlebutt is that he may be either UN, or if they collapse the US under the Hillary Clinton Trump false flag, collapse the US, then elevate him to dictator by all of these military false flags. But
wait, I'm sorry, Alfred. I just want to maybe be sure that you said you had said maybe in error that perhaps he would be elevated to Secretary General of the United States. I think you meant the United Nations, since Ban Ki-moon. I just want to correct that, because I think our viewers heard something else.
Sorry. Yeah,
that's okay.
He has 2 paths upwards.
Right.
That speech can be read as either his kind of not rehearsal. When you're an actor and you're pitching for a job, what is that called? I'm going for a What do actors do?
An audition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was either his audition to be Secretary General of the UN. That was number one, a covert audition.
Oh, clever, Alfred.
Yeah,
Clever.
number one, to succeed Ban Ki-moon. Or that was his audition or initiation speech to out Trump, which I think it was, because he said, we're the strongest, we're the best, we're going, which is out trumping Trump on the right, which is the military. And meantime, he's noticed that in North Carolina, he's got the blacks out in the street, and the military is kind of forcing back, right? And I mean, a midnight curfew is not a curfew. I've lived in Cuba. That's not a curfew.
Right. That's just when things get started.
That's what they call dicta blanda, no dictadura.
That's what they call dinner time. Okay, let me.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, give me some curfew here.
Well, but
give me fries with it.
Okay.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not exactly curfew.
Okay. So I said, stay tuned to your plasma machine to hear the rundown of what Big Brother said. Like you have Big Brother Obama, born in Kenya, and now Little Brother's voting for Obama, his supposed Kenyan brother. All that is disinformation. We have so much CIA and Intel disinformation around Obama that you need a fork to get through it. Okay, I'm getting there. 2 points real quick. The ambassador brought up the Alfred Nobel Peace Prize that he was given. If you go into that Peace Prize, it was a war prize because all he talked about it was war. But we did an examination through independent scientist Lorraine Murray, who I recommend as a possible future guest on your programs. She's a PhD. She's testified at our hearings with Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad, former Prime Minister of Malaysia, where we had the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, and she's a depleted uranium expert. The light, there was like the Norway spirals, which is supposed to be an interdimensional spiritual meme it created. Oh, here comes the Messiah. That was created the night before Obama gave his Alfred Nobel Peace War Prize speech in Norway by the Tromsø, Norway heart facility that is funded by the Wallenberg Foundation. And the ambassador can tell you that the Wallenberg family is the big Illuminati family in Sweden. He can tell you that.
They actually is the co-founders of the Bilderberg, organization.
Yeah. So Obama is a puppet of the Wallenberg. Okay, number one. Number two, Obama is responsible for the radiation poisoning omnicide of humanity, the biosphere, and the planet through the Fukushima false flag event of March 11th, 2011, that was done with the participation of the Tromsø, Norway heart facility, which created a lot of the tsunami there that went into the nuclear power plants that were strategically set up on the ocean. This thing was set up decades in advance because they used the U.S. It was done via the U.S. Department of Energy that immediately went in and took over the Japanese power company and actually did all the moves that escalated it.
And Alfred, you have citations of this on your site, on your News Inside Out site. Is that correct? You have the stories?
Yeah. We have done multiple programs with Lorraine Murray.
Right.
We have testified before the Diet. I myself spoke for the Diet of Japan, which is the Parliament of Japan, as did Lorraine Murray.
Okay.
We were invited by a parliamentarian. No, wait.
Okay, we just want to keep it on. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. But go ahead. Finish your comment.
These are just small points.
Go ahead. Finish your comment.
And it's the Stuxnet virus, which was jointly developed by the Mossad and the U.S. CIA, which was used inside the nuclear power plants, which made it blow up. And finally, Obama Suebarca. Barack Obama Sr. was just a senior civil servant in Japan that was part of Tom Mboya's CIA apparatus that they brought over, and he signed a contract in when Suebarca was 10 years old to act as his father, and then they killed him in a simulated automobile accident in Kenya when Obama turned 18 and became active in CIA. Okay. Now, Obama is guilty of mega false flags on the American people, including the ET Mars cover-up, because Obama was part of the CIA Mars program, teleportation cover-up because he's teleported to Mars, the time travel cover-up because he was pre-identified by time travel and was briefed on all of this as a U.S. president. He was the keystone in domestic false flags. The keystone is the president that comes in after the false flag and says, "Bless you, my people. I feel your pain. We have to collect your guns." At the Boston Marathon, at all the school shootings, at Hurricane Sandy. Romney would have won, except they created Hurricane Sandy so that then Obama was put back in the commander-in-chief role to mobilize the National Guard. You were a victim of Hurricane Sandy. That was a HAARP hurricane, and I've done a radio program with all the proof on that.
Okay.
And multiple Imagineering false flags, psyops.
Right.
When you read the, I call it, UN speech, it's actually the unspeech. It's not a speech. It's an unspeech.
It's an unspeech. Well, that's what the ambassador's saying. I mean, the ambassador, that's what you were saying, and you were there, I think, when he was, accepting the Nobel Peace Prize, and can speak to what Alfred was just saying. But in terms of this idea of this global community, I mean, is this really the new world order? And I think the ambassador also has some other announcements, and then we're going to go to Martin. Go ahead.
I unfortunately, know that, like Alfred said, that they want a woman, and I have heard which one the cabal has proposed supposed to be the next leader, and she has also done the same thing as Obama done with America, but with Europe. And so her prize, because she would never be re-elected as leader of her country, she also was promised a position as the leader of the United Nations. Let's see what's going to happen with that. I think you all can figure out who I'm talking about. Is the little lady man? We could call her down in Germany. And the thing is this way, that we will see, who of these two characters will be. But I think that, like Alfred is saying, I'm quite sure that right now we see, even again, the Wallenberg country, Sweden, taking extensive parts in making treaties that actually make Sweden and not independent country anymore. It makes it actually a semi-NATO country. In reality, it makes it a NATO country, but it just doesn't have it on paper. And so for the first time in history, Sweden has been stricken away as an independent country by Russia and other nations. That means basically that what's happening here the last days is that the media has been building up the thing, saying it's Russian spies everywhere to try to scare the people, and then they spend like a few seconds on saying why the Russian spies are here. It's because the government give them or made them a NATO member without even asking them for permission. That type of decision, as this country has been independent and been a country without a decision and being neutral through two world wars, basically this world war that's coming, they will not be neutral. And so the situation here is that this is a decision that needs to be taken by the people. Of course, for people is ignored. Of course, for most of the people probably have no clue that what's even happened, and they will just be traumatized about Russian spies that goes and talk with the military. It's so ridiculous. It's amazing. Hello?
Ambassador.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I was
Okay.
muted, but someone's phone is going on.
Yes. I was cut out. So basically what I was trying to say
No,
is
you
that...
said something about World War III. I mean, are you making an announcement here? What are you saying?
No, what I'm saying is that they're trying to kickstart a World War III before Obama leaves office. This is what they're trying to do now desperately. They're trying desperately in Syria by bombing Syrian soldiers. You have Israelis attacking into to Syria. Supposedly a Syrian airplane finally was shot down for all the crimes they have been committing in Syria in the past. I think it would be strange that they would not defend themselves. And you have all these different sayings now that, okay, Russia shut down a convoy, or they should be sentenced to war crimes when they've been breaking the international regulations and laws in attacking Syrian forces fighting ISIS. And all these different rhetorics that's going on. Then you have a situation with a Candyman. This is the new name. Many people doesn't know that actually the president of Ukraine he's a Candyman. Basically, he owns a candy factory, and so now he has a new name, is Candyman. He and the crews have been trying desperately in Ukraine, and now you have little Sweden trying to provoke Russia and insult them by their ridiculous propaganda too. So, and at the same time, NATO is pushing and promoting and basically surrounding Russia in an attempt to press and push war. At the same time, we have the new puppet there coming up there in Philippines, which basically is now giving the justification for United States to actually physically take again maybe Philippines. And we will see it because the need the South China Sea situation. Then at the same time, you have the so-called crazy boy, which I call him, the one that actually doesn't exist, but is run by another person, but still is on the media all the time. We talk about the North Korean leader. This particular person there is making problems. So basically, you see everywhere the cabal puppets are making their scenes to create, because this is just like Alfred said, it's just a big charade. It's like a movie. They're just playing a game. They're actors. And so basically what we're seeing is the act going on, and the act is all about preparing us for a third world war. At the same time, we're having a financial crisis hitting us in the next coming days, most likely, if God doesn't change that. And I hope that the people that I know will try to do their best to intervene, or at least make it as less harmful as possible. And all these things happening at the same time, which leads to the thing that, like Alfred said, I believe that it might make Obama be able to hold on to power for a longer time, so he can fulfill his the prophecy that they wanted him to fulfill. And I think this time the people need to realize it, wake up to the situation. People are being conned and lied too much, and both from the independent media and also in the normal media. I mean, you can't even call them media, you should call them propagandists, because that's what they are. But I mean, it's a lot of confusion. And then you have, Miss Hillary there, which is, a quite clear thing, and same thing with Trump. And you have a disinformation campaign that, for example, China doesn't like Trump. And I believe that majority of the nations actually like Trump, because and people think that he is against the cabal. No, he's one of them. So people needs to learn to understand that all these people, it's like you believe in one way, and in reality it's the other way around. So you have to wake up and learn to discern and realize the problem. And I think that we are now facing in the next coming days, if our armies, military, and people that have the power to do something, if we intervene together, we will be able to stop them. But if we sit down and just let the charade go on, I think we're gonna maybe have a third world war. We will have a financial crisis, and we will have a tremendous thing. And of course, that is, ending up the depopulation agenda also. And at the same time, also the United Nations agenda of controlling the whole world will be easier to be done after that cleanup process will start.
So, Ambassador, you're saying that there is. I'm going to go right to Martin. So I want Martin just to be ready. I'll be right over there. You're saying that the financial crisis is imminent. Is that what you're saying?
I believe my indication that I received in the last days from a very high up person inside of one of the agencies that handles the funds. I will not say which agency because I don't want to endanger this person. Stated basically that it's imminent, and we can just count days.
Imminent.
And,
okay. All right.
So I think, and also this importantly, because this is also in Europe, at least the Kabbalah are quite smart because they have to make a small announcement, about protecting themselves, and they have gone out and said that at least to the European population to save up money. Deutsche Bank is one of the banks going to go down. They have said to prepare yourself.
Hold on. Okay, hold on. I have to get to Martin for just a second. Just 1 second, Alfred, because I think, this is why we saw the German government preparing its citizens to, stock up on food and water. Martin, I want to bring Martin in real quick, and I'll get right back to you, Alfred. Just hang on a second. Let me unmute Martin, because I think what Martin said before, did I unmute you? Yeah, you're unmuted. No. Are you unmuted, Martin?
Yes, I'm unmuted.
Okay. So, Martin, I mean, you had said something really telling before, and I think what the ambassador was kind of alluding to was that they're trying to start a third world war. And what you saw Obama's speech at the UN was something that you called notice. Could you explain what was your translation of or interpretation of that? And how does that fit into this agenda that's trying to go on right now?
Basically, all leaderships have to operate under equity in the sense of doing the ability to have plausible deniability of later events. So when he puts his speech together, he's giving notice to the world of the events that are about to take place. And later when we come back and say, oh, well, you didn't tell us there was going to be a war, he can say, oh, yes, I did. It was right here. Maybe not, you didn't understand it, but right here I've got this in my speech where it says, well, if the Russians don't knock it off, something's going to have to happen, yada, yada, yada. Well, the whole point is, in Ukraine is now wanting to become, NATO is coming into Ukraine, and they're trying to persuade Ukraine to join NATO. Well, you understand, I don't know how many people understand what Ukraine represents when it comes to the old USSR. Ukraine used to be the weapons manufacturing part of the USSR. So if it joins NATO, Russia loses all of its abilities to create weapons to defend itself using the technology that they had developed in Ukraine. So if NATO can push hard enough to get Ukraine to try to get into NATO, Russia is going to rebel on a large scale. I agree with the fact that we're on the verge of a collapse, because how else do you reinvigorate an economy, especially a global economy, is by using war to create jobs, to create manufacture things and manufacture more people joining the war as members of the war. So you're going to stimulate economies through war. It's what they've always done for centuries. You collapse an economy, you get people used to seeing all kinds of military intervention, because think about it, you collapse an economy, you're going to have chaos everywhere. So what do? In the United States, they call in the National Guard, just like they did with that Hurricane Katrina. They call in the National Guard because they need more enforcement agencies. So they get us used to the fact that we have military in our presence at all times. That's indoctrination.
Right, but I want to go back. The first thing you said was equity. Could you please explain to our viewers what you're talking about? They don't really understand what you're. I think some people might not have understood that this idea of notice is based in law that is called equity law.
Well, if you go back,
explain that.
Let's just talk about a notice then. Where did a notice come from? When you go back to the kingdoms, back when you had kings and they had their subjects and they had their kingdoms and the people within the kingdoms, how did the king make an announcement? He would send out his notary, and they would take a bill, which is a piece of paper, and it would say, and the notary would go out to a post someplace and go, hear ye, the king has made a declaration. I am now posting this notice, giving you notice of the declaration. Well, it's the same thing Obama's doing right now. He's coming out and saying, hear ye, there's an event going to happen, and we're giving you notice, equitably notice. Now, are you going to do anything about it, or are you just going to ignore what I just told you, or are you going to research what I just said and find out what I'm talking about? See, right now, 90% of the human population doesn't even do 1 ounce of research on things that are events that are being notified. You know, and again, the ambassador said something very interesting. He said the Swedish people weren't even given the opportunity to vote on anything. Well, I don't know about Sweden, but I know about the United States. And if you're a U.S. citizen, you are subject to the rules of the United States. And if the United States wants to make a choice, they can make that choice because you are a subject of the United States. It's just like a kingdom. You got to go back and think of the foundation of how all these things started.
Okay.
All kingdoms, everything. You go into every one of our states in the United States is an independent nation unto itself. It has its own king called the governor. What's the governor do? The first person they nominate is a Supreme Court justice. Well, in the equity world, that person would be a chancellor, and that person would be the people would be able to go to that chancellor for their grievances, because how equity was set up was the king wanted rules. Well, he didn't know how, he was illiterate at the time. He had no idea how to read, write, whatever else. So who did he turn to write his laws? The only people who knew how to read and write at that time were the clergy of the churches. And they already knew how to write canons. They already knew how to write doctrines. So if you do the research and look at the laws that we live under right now, we live under the canon laws. We live under the doctrine laws because they're all established by the churches.
Whoa, Martin, that was incredible how you just explained that. And I could never put it into those words. And I just, you guys are awesome. Alfred, I know you had some comments. I'm sorry, Martin. Let me just interject for a second.
No, and these actually build upon the foundation, the kind of masonry, legal masonry foundation that the Obama-Soebarka entity just proclaimed. And that is, that entity is operating within what we call third density, which is the time-space hologram of the universe that we are, that we're in now. And so it's that kind of an event. However, we know scientifically that there are other densities that we're operating in, fourth, fifth density, which is more based on unity consciousness and actual love rather than I win, you lose, which is war, disease, crime, poverty, that kind of thing. And so that a phenomenon that I've been studying, which actually there's actually a template of it in the yugas, which are called great years in the astronomical sense of 25,920 year precession cycles as the Earth goes through the equinox cycles. We're now coming to the end of one such 25,000 plus year cycle called the Kali Yuga. In the Mayan calendrics that supposedly occurred on December 21st, 2012. In the Kali Yuga, because there's a little bit of, adjustment, it's kind of, these things, the scholars say, well, it could happen in 2025. This is actually all one cycle, and some scholars say, oh, it's December 21st. Some scholars say it's 2025. What that happens means that there's an interdimensional portal that opens at that time. And to make a long story short, because this is the third or a total of 75,000 plus years that the Earth has done it through 3 yugas, it means that we have a planetary, quote, ascension or density shift to the Satya Yuga, which is 4th, 5th density. And this is something that happens cyclically in the universe, and people can go to my book, The Omniverse, which gives the structure of it. Barack Obama is the entity that represents those forces that are trying to keep the maximum number of human souls from actually ascending. Okay, so he's promoting war, disease, crime, and poverty, so that people have to go back into the cycle of reincarnation. Within that mode, the inner spiritual calendar that he's following is the 7 years now, up through, or 7+ years, not 9 years up through 2025. And so he's promoting kind of an antichrist. On the surface, he's, well, let's have this kind of thing. Let's have a perfect kind of a world. But really, he's about he's the front for the Wallenbergs, for all of these forces that are about depopulation, ecocide, omnicide. He's Soebarca. He's not even African American. He's Indonesian. And that photograph came out when he was in the summit in Southeast Asia last week, sipping on a coconut. He's Indonesian. He's not African American.
Okay.
And
yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
And he's promoting a race war. You know, Black Lives Matters is another color revolution that they're running in the U.S. And it's all connivance.
Right. I'm going to have you guys comment on Soros and his
Soros is their piece that they ran in to promote Black Lives Matters. And then on the other side, they have the police, and every once in a while they say, okay, get one. And they go, and then here we go. And then they have 24/7 footage of North Carolina, and they're just throwing out these memes for the collapse of the, quote, United States, because that's where a large concentration of ascending souls are.
All right, Ambassador, I think we have to kind of, this is the ambassador's war on ignorance. I mean, we're having this discussion right now because we're trying to invigorate some critical thinking, in viewers. And I just want to, before I go to the ambassador, I just want to make a point that, it was Barack Obama's his farewell speech of his presidency. And I just want to contrast that a little bit to George Washington's farewell address. And I just want to ask the viewers to compare the two and see how far away have we strayed from our founding fathers' intention. When it comes to foreign policy, George Washington's farewell address, number 36, the great rule of conduct for us is in regard to foreign nations, is in extending our commercial relations to have with them as little political connection as possible, so far as we already have formed engagements. Let them be fulfilled with perfect good faith. Here, let us stop. So, the founding fathers didn't, want us meddling in other foreign affairs, other foreign countries' affairs. And that, in fact, he goes on to say, a passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils. So picking friends and picking favorites is not what George Washington had in mind. Sympathy for the favorite nation, facilitating the illusion of an imaginary common interest. Starting to sound like the JFK speech of 1961 and another speech which you'll recognize. In case where no real common interest exists, and infusing into one of the enmities of the other betrays the former into a participation in the quarrels and wars of the latter, without adequate inducement or justification. It leads also to concessions to the favorite nations of privileges denied to others. This is like really exactly what we've been doing. It seems like it, and it seems like what, which is doubly to injure the nation making the concessions by unnecessarily parting with what ought to have been retained, and by exciting jealousy, ill will, and disposition to retaliate in the parties from whom equal privileges are withheld. This is, I mean, he was warning us about exactly what the ambassador started this interview talking about. And it gives to ambitions, corrupted or deluded citizens who devote themselves to favorite nation, facility to betray or sacrifice the interests of their own country without odium, sometimes even with popularity, gilding with the appearances of a virtuous sense of obligation, a commendable deference for public opinion, or a laudable zeal for public good, the base or foolish compliances of ambition, corruption, or infatuation. And this is what George Washington warned us about. This was the intent of our forefathers for the United States was not to meddle in the affairs of other countries. There's nowhere in the Constitution does it mandate the United States to be the world police. Or is it mandated for the United States to do nation building?
I want to make a comment right here.
To do nation building. Go ahead, Martin.
At that time when he wrote that, we were a nation of people. We're no longer a nation of people. We're a nation of corporations. And so when U.S. corporate interests want to go into foreign countries, that's why we stick our nose in other people's businesses, because we want to get our businesses shoved into other people's countries. And so we use politics to get those businesses into those countries. So it's not about, when that speech was written by Washington, he was thinking about actual people. And when you read Obama's speech, he's talking about corporations. He's talking about companies. He's not talking about people. But he's trying to spin it, though, to make you have feeling and compassion for these people who are being deprived and people who are being left out or not fed or not being protected. But it's nothing about that. That is his deception, is to make you think his speech is about people when his speech is about corporate takeover and corporate advancement in other foreign countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Martin. And the whole concept that, about our birth certificates and about how every state is a corporation, United States is a corporation, and we're all citizens of the corporation, and even our birth certificates, we're all traded, our future earnings are traded as commodities on the stock market. But the ambassador, I'm sorry, go ahead. Did you have a comment?
We are common shareholders in the United States. That's why we're U.S. citizens, because we're common shareholders in the U.S. corporation. Like any other country, if you look, I can go down to Washington, D.C., and I can go into the Secretary of State's office, and I can find the incorporation paperwork for the country of Australia, for the Russian Republic, for all these different things are right down here. They're all registered in the United States at the Secretary of State's office. All these corporate entities. Right. So what it is, and the people don't even realize that we're a part of a corporation, right? And this goes back to Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato when they started talking about creating communities, started talking about creating counties, started talking about creating senates, creating houses of representatives. It was about creating a corporate structure. Aristotle comes in and says, no, you're forgetting the individual. You're forgetting about the independent people. And they're saying, well, too bad. No?
I know, but Aristotle also talked about the noble lie, which, or maybe it was Plato, but he probably got it from Plato. But Aristotle, the noble lie, when is it okay to lie as a public servant? When is it okay and under what conditions? And, this is where it kind of,
for the greater good.
For the greater good, right? And that's kind of, are we getting into Machiavelli? Are we getting into,
but those are all third density concepts.
Of course.
Because here the consciousness is duality consciousness, which in the end is I win, you lose. And we're moving now, the book is closed on that because we're moving out of the Kali Yuga into the Satya Yuga, where what functions, the only thing that functions is unity consciousness, is we are one. So it's unconditional love. So that history is done. We've done that for 75,000 years or 25,920 years in that individual yuga. So now we're going into a huge period, a golden period of
Conscious awareness.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But I'm glad you brought that up, Alfred, because for viewers, realize that this is going to be published on YouTube, and there's going to be people viewing this for the first time who are not awake, who haven't done their research. They've been busy running their lives. Like the ambassador says, we've all been living in our goldfish bowls, and at some point, we have to get out of the goldfish bowl and see the world around us and really what's out there, do our research and understand this. And Alfred, thank you for bringing this point up, because, people are trying to understand what they're hearing in a 3D construct, and not realizing that we're leaving a 3D construct. And we do have to incorporate the fact that there is a different consciousness that's really enveloping humanity right now. And that's where the solutions, and Cobra's even said this in a previous exopolitics roundtable that we had, that, really we have to start thinking outside the box, like you're saying. Ambassador, now in terms of this whole concept about, the U.S. sticking its nose in other people's business, which is contrary to what, George Washington clearly said in his farewell speech, the contrast between that and what Barack Obama was saying was like night and day.
But this is the problem, is because United States has turned into a dog of war for the cabal. Basically, it's a corporation's power, and basically they are policing the interest of these corporations, protecting their vessels with all the shipments coming from China, from other places to different parts of the world, from pirates and other people. So it's all about protecting corporate interests. It's all about creating a new world order. And basically, the military arm of the 666 of Antichrist, like Alfred is talking about, is basically NATO. NATO is the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. Is the best name for this organization, because it's built up on a concept that is purely an aggressor, is an evil entity, and basically you join us or we destroy you type of mentality. And they're always twisting the words. It's so funny because, this country is, is hostile. This person is hostile. Or this country is committing crimes against humanity. In reality, they are the world champions in committing crimes against humanity. They're, it's like, for example, I was, I'm going to see if I can do that as we are speaking, as a good example here. Wait. Just give me a second here.
So you're saying NATO, you're talking about, I know you had your own interpretation of it. We're talking about North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but the ambassador has his own.
I renamed them to the true name, and basically because you're named after your actions, not what you claim to be. I can claim to be a messiah, but if I'm not acting like one, then I'm not one. You see, you look at this guy here, Simin Elliott, the Mr. al-Baghdadi. Okay, here you have him, the head of ISIS. Okay, and different photos, together here. You have him there in his little beard. There is a photo from a nightclub in Germany together there, and then he's standing there behind McCain, and I put a nice little Freemason thing so everyone could see who he's representing when he's there on his state visits. And here again you have John McCain and the al-Baghdadi there on the right side. Also, many people doesn't know that the head of Al-Qaeda in the United States is also a Jewish-born man who converted to Islam supposedly. And so, this is, here you want to see the evidence, you want to see who is the real terrorist, who supports ISIS, what is ISIS, all the drama. Here you have the pictures. There's no questions about it. You understand? John McCain should be arrested, taken to Guantanamo, waterboarded over and over again to expose the rest of the terrorists inside NATO and his own government. You understand? And in that case, we would make the United States great again, and we would also make the world safe again, because this is the guys who makes the world unsafe. The terrorists are like, peanuts. They're nobodies. And then this is the guys who really are the criminals. This is the real terrorists. That's why I renamed NATO to the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. And unfortunately, this is based on facts. It's not accusation. You have to live after what they live, and this is a terrorist organization, and they need to be called for what they are. You know.
Right, but is Barack Obama trying to say, or is he trying to convince us to give up our sovereignty? And anybody can comment on this who wants.
I mean, the sovereignty
or,
of United States, including all countries in the world, in the United Nations Constitution, I think it's the 22nd to 24. Alfred, you maybe know it better than me. That basically where you give out all sovereign rights of a country over to the United Nations Security Council. So in reality, it's no sovereign countries, okay? Everything is run already by the United Nations Security Council. And so basically it is already a one world government. And unfortunately, we are not told that, because that probably doesn't gonna make people happy, but people need to wake up to the reality. People need to wake up to the truth and stop living in Disneyland.
Right. So they're using a little bit of, sleight of hand, a little deception. Is it under the disguise of international law? I'm just trying to help people who really don't see this yet. And we're just trying to help them use some critical thinking skills to, or teach them some critical thinking skills to kind of say that, look at what our founding fathers said, and look at what Barack Obama said, and it seems like that he's asking us to give up our independence, really, that we fought for under disguise of international law, and I think he President Washington was very clear about, let it be fulfilled in good faith in terms of commercial relations, and let it stop there. But it seems that this whole concept of the United Nations wanting to rule the world, and yet we've seen repeatedly that they've never really had any military force or might that was ever effective. We never saw them have any kind of effective measure in terms of peacekeeping anywhere in the world. So did Barack Obama make the case to the American people? And I'll be right with you, Alfred has a comment on this, but the whole concept and the whole construct of how American policy is made is through something called incrementalism. Okay? You see this? Status quo. This is our new mascot with the syringe turning everyone into zombies. So the incrementalism, when you try to get bills passed through Congress and the legislature, the way to get the bills passed through is to kind of relate them to other bills. It's really about deception. It's deceit. It's manipulation. It's trying to get policymakers to say, well, this bill's an awful lot like that one. And it's not. I mean, it's really like professional liars. So here's Aristotle's noble lie. And they lie to each other too. But incrementalism really is when you implement policy over such a long period of time that people don't notice the change. Because if you started out right from the beginning and say, well, we want to implement this, radical policy that would be just so different people couldn't really accept it, they would be rejected. So what they do is they do it very incrementally. This is a psychological trick. They do it very incrementally and get you to rationalize one step at a time, and eventually they get to accomplish their goal. So 9/11 was a little different in that regard, because that was really kind of like an outlier in terms of how policy is made in the United States. But Alfred, you wanted to make a comment on that.
Yeah, I wanted to say that if we're doing deep analysis into the deep state of the United States, which I believe we have to do with regard to Barack Obama tonight, or today in this program, I think we have to go to quantum access and the testimony of a former U.S. chrononaut or time traveler. The fact is that the chronography, the hidden government of the United States, one of whose principal technologies is secret time travel, they, number one, used secret time travel, the CIA, and they had Andy Basiago go via secret time travel with 2 or 3 other children back in time to the tent headquarters of George Washington in New York, and strategically advise him to retreat in a decisive battle against the British, which allowed him to survive and fight another day and be successful against the British. And you can go online, and Andy talks about his conversations with George Washington, etc. And I've had many conversations with Andy, and all of this is factual. You've got multiple witnesses, etc. So if you really want to know how the United States has been formed, it's been formed in part by secret time travel, where the CIA went back and they helped Washington defeat the British, number one. Number two, the CIA had all the facts of 9/11 30 years in advance in 1971, and we have Andy Bashago's testimony. I took the affidavit and admitted it into evidence as one of the judges at the 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal with 30 plus witnesses, where in 1971, Andy was taken to the secret time travel laboratories at Sandia National Labs, and you go in there, they have time scientists in white coats, the whole bit, and they had films going with the, images of the Twin Towers going down, and all of that had been brought back from the future from 2001 back to 1971. And the National Security Advisor of the president at that time was Henry Kissinger. The president was Richard Nixon. Henry Kissinger was the intimate advisor to the Rothschilds and to the Rockefellers, who were the principals behind the false flag of 9/11. So they just used time travel to plan 9/11 using time travel from the past to the future. So it's a false flag. And we proved it at the 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal under law. So, boom. So all we're waiting for is enforcement to bring these people to prison, and under principles of equitable justice to have all of their wealth transferred over to the common good. So that's all we're waiting for. And it's Barack Obama's speech at the UN is just a temporary maneuver to try to block our people's justice in common law courts.
Oh, common law
and
courts.
I'm speaking as a judge
right
at the 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal at this moment. Okay, boom. And so that these are the types. My fellow here, who is a private American, can testify that the common law institutions in the United States and throughout the world have been working over these decades, ever since the unlawful assassination of President John F. Kennedy, which formed the first invasion of the state of Israel and all of these actors into the United States. And I'm proud to have been a judge at the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, which found the state of Israel guilty of war crimes going from 1948 to the present in having performed genocide against Palestine. So that's all I wanted to say.
Unbelievable, Alfred, and thank you for your service, and thank you for serving as a judge on the War Crimes Tribunal. Thank you very much for your service. Martin, go ahead. I know, and I'm going to go to the ambassador. Go ahead, Martin. I know you have something to comment on here.
Yeah, I'm going to comment. All right.
Go for it.
Alfred, I have to ask you a question. Do you know what the common law is in the United States right now?
Well, there are many. Tell me.
Well, you got to think of the etymology of words. Common, meaning that it's the most prevalent, the most prevalent law that's happening. So when someone says, well, they're not upholding common law in the United States. Well, when you talk about common law, you're talking about the law that is common to the relevant time of the event. Right now, you live under the common law of corporate rule. So when you're trying to bring in issues of a human nature into common law into the United States, what you're being blocked because they can't recognize your common law because it's not common anymore. We don't practice that law in the United States anymore. That law was practiced in the 1700s.
Well, no, but from a jurisprudence point of view, as a law professor at 3 universities, I beg to differ.
Well,
because you are ignoring the organic connection of common law to natural law.
No, you're not.
Yes.
No.
Because you are saying that what people take to be common law is common law.
Mr. Professor, I want you to do one thing for me.
Yeah.
Examine exclusive equity jurisdiction, please. If you want to talk about jurisprudence and you want to talk about the law for the people, you're going to have to understand exclusive equity jurisprudence. Under exclusive equity jurisprudence, the only people who have the ability to invoke that jurisprudence are the people who are not volunteers, because equity will not aid a volunteer. And a definition of a volunteer is anyone who has in its possession imperfect deeds. Now,
well, that's a lot of specialized language, and that I believe defeats the power of natural law, which comes into operation.
Alfred,
just one moment. Right. Gentlemen, we want to have a vigorous debate here, but we want to be respectful.
But I want to ask a question.
But Martin, let me just say that you're citing some Supreme Court, old Supreme Court rulings where you're getting this information from. Would you like to just explain that? Give us a citation on this.
Well, the thing I wanted to bring up was. And I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Now, the book that we're talking about, there's a couple of books on equity. We're talking about exclusive, not exclusive. Yes, exclusive equity.
Yes, exclusive equity.
We're talking about it's not practiced or taught in law schools. It hasn't since what, 1933. So
no. 1834 is when exclusive equity was taken over by the U.S. Constitution.
But where's the books? Who are the judges?
And
Supreme Court judges.
You ready?
Told me several times.
Mr. Professor, are you ready? Do you know a guy by the gentleman Joseph Story?
Sure, he's a famous judge.
All right. Do you know the gentleman by the name of Henry Gibson?
There are many Henry Gibsons.
No, he was a law professor, and also he was a Supreme Court justice for the state of Tennessee under Chancery, and also a professor out of Stanford named Pomeroy. Pomeroy quoted back in 1834. In 100 years, the United States and any of its law practitioners will not be able to recognize exclusive equity because it will not be used as a law form in the future because of corporation.
Because of corporation. So the 1933, the Trading with the Enemy Act changed everybody's status.
Emergency Banking Relief Act.
The Emergency Bank in 1933, rather, and changed everyone's status into corporations.
No, right? But what you're talking about there is the corruption of the American body politic.
Yes.
The American Constitution.
No, it's not the corruption.
No, hold on, Martin.
We're talking about apples and oranges here and wasting people's time.
Okay.
We're talking about apples and oranges and wasting people's time in a conversation.
Really, it's wasting people's time to teach them individuality.
Okay, let's move on. Hold on one second, guys. We're going to stay focused on geopolitics.
Is wasting people's time because you're talking about apples and I'm talking about oranges.
Right. We'll just wait for the debate on law and equity another time. We're trying to have a meeting of the minds, and we're not exactly having a meeting of the minds, and we'll just leave it respectfully.
But I think what we all need to realize, and this is the facts, okay, is that the ones with the guns, understand, are the ones that having the power. And I think the only way we can basically cause a revolution is that by being united, we will never be defeated. Okay? And the problem that we have in humanity today is that unfortunately we are not united. We are separated by religions, we are separated by race, we are separated by nations. And I think that it's time that humanity is finding its brothers and sisters and unite against the atrocities. Because the problem is this way: as long as we're going to have people enforcing law, as long as we're going to have people protecting countries, as long as we're going to have people, living their own little illusions, living their own little alter realities, and not, taking conscious decisions of what's right and wrong, which is a very simple thing. I mean, if you see a person being raped on the street, would you just look at it, or would you intervene and try to stop it? I mean, this is what we're having today. We're seeing a major crime against humanity on every form. Even by just watching TV is a crime against humanity for poor kids. But we need to basically do something about it. And that's why I think it's very important to keep the focus here on trying to make people understand what's at stake and what is we who is here. For example, we are giving our people a lot of different type of information to gather this knowledge. But most importantly, what will we do? Will we stand quietly around and allow these people to start a third world war? Or will we, united, refuse to go and fight these wars for these corporations anymore? When is the time? For example, people doesn't realize it. I mean, it's a very small group of people ruling the world with an iron fist. Okay? And the iron fist can very easily just squash that little potato if they like to, like it happened through the centuries over and over again. But I think we are now at this stage in life that we can save millions of people's lives from dying and millions of people's lives from starving by actually doing something and stop living in this alternate reality. Because we're living in an alternate reality when someone comes and say that, for example, this is the rule, so because of that you have to be punished. Okay, now who made that rule? Okay, what is this rule based on? Is this rule based on, like what I'm talking about is not just law. I mean, take a doctor. A doctor can say that, I believe that you should not sleep for a week because I don't feel like doing this. Okay, it's not based on him having empathy for you. It's not based on him having a professional opinion. It's just based on him not wanting to take a decision. Okay, now this type of behaviors that humanity has needs to have consequences. And if we are united against these criminal behaviors from people, they will not be able to run us anymore. But as long as we are keeping ourselves divided, then we will never ever be able to win over these people. And I think this is very, very important. I mean, this experiment, this big psyop, which is called American election, where you have pest in one side of a corner and you have cholera on the other side of a corner, and now that's your two choices, two clowns. Who do you pick? I mean, this is an insult to any intelligent person. But still, what does people do? Nothing. Okay, we have seen an obvious fraudulent election going on. We have been seeing Bernie Sanders being basically raped from his position. And what did people do? We're going to go and support, what we consider a lesser evil? Or will we actually do a revolution? It's time to basically for us to say, listen, we don't like Donald Trump, or we don't like Hillary Clinton. We want something more intelligent. Do you mean that 300 million only have these two imbeciles? Over 300 million people only have these two cartoon characters to lead the most powerful army in the world? This is frightening for the whole world. The whole world is sitting laughing at America. And then at the same time, we're having in Europe, leaders who no one even knows who they are and what the opinions they really have or anything. And many of them would probably not even be fit to run a corporation. But still they're running the biggest corporations that exist, which is the country corporations. But we can start arguing about all these things, but we need to inspire people to actually take charge and not consent, and basically do a united revolution of not cooperating with any more of this insanity. And actually the police and army, I said that 2 years ago when I came out, I said to the people, it's time for us to take charge and arrest these people and do the work which we have sworn to do, and not being servants, not being afraid, not being this, because a third world war will not benefit anyone. And financial collapses is also fiction, because all these things is just fictional numbers created by these people. So someone going to be able to make people starve and people going to suffer. And again, the people who created this thing will sit as millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires and laugh at everyone. And I think this is something that we need to do something about. And I know, like, Alfred has been a warrior on his side fighting this evil machinery. And I know that, you know, our friend here also, you know, Martin is trying to do his best to try to help people to realize. But what the people, I think, need to realize, it's life and death. Okay? And then we can sit and argue about this, you know, things back and forward. But this is about life and death for humanity. I believe also this man who was space traveling and things like this, I know they do this type of things. It's like doing this whole meeting here. If you have a scale of having pain from 1 to 10, I've been having a pain of 9 during the whole, during our whole meeting here. I'm even sweating due to pain. And this is very funny. I went to a meeting at the embassy, the Russian embassy this morning. After that, I've been so much agony and pain, and it's just been escalating. But I know that this is games being played on us. This is a system that they are gradually doing. And if I would go to the hospital or think that they're going to do something to help me, I will just be wasting hours there and sweat, and nothing will be happening. Okay, this is unfortunately, and I think that our whole medical system, our legal system, everything in the core needs to be frightened around. We need to have accountability for everyone. And I believe that people has to realize, by looking aside and disclaiming responsibility doesn't make you an innocent person. Everyone is collectively responsible for crimes against humanity, because we do not voice our opinions. We do not do anything to basically, because we don't want to be having problems with people being that we are politically incorrect. I was sitting at a meeting and someone was slandering this woman because she was saying some supportive thing about Putin, and they were like laughing, this stupid Swedish people. And I just told them that I agree 100% with this person. And I said, if you would know who this man is, you wouldn't make this comment. But because you're only looking at the Wallenberg TV channel, TV4, which is all run by the Wallenbergs, you will not have any other opinion other than that he is a military dictator. Based on what? You understand? Our countries are run by not only dictators, by mass murderers and terrorists. And so I think that we as population, humanity, we need to say that we do not consent to this, and we will spread this knowledge to others. And I think that the people in power, like if I'm sitting in a powerful position, I've been doing that. I've been arguing, fighting on behalf of humanity with the family, with other people through these years. And I don't believe in the depopulation agenda. I do not believe in war. I don't believe in financial crisis, because it's all fictional. It's only what do you want? And the thing is this, that's what we need to change. And also, unfortunately, the world is surrounded by a lot of liars and cheaters and people giving false promises and people giving false ideas about things, and people who are actually out there trying to do something to change humanity are being pressed and suppressed and pushed and stopped and blocked. But we will either way pass through and succeed with our missions, because we will never surrender. This is the thing. The time when you die, you finish, you go over to the next side. But before that day comes, we will never surrender to this evil. But all this fiction about, you know, I see on a daily basis people are lying, oh, the R is happening tomorrow, the R is happening. It's already happened. It's time for people to wake up. The people are promoting people that can do nothing. It is all about fooling and cheating people. It was a reality 2013. Today is something completely different. Thanks to this guy that I was just sharing pictures of before. You want to complain about the dinner not happening? Go and take McCain and waterboard the bloody person. Okay, that's the guys that's behind the suffering of so many people. And so we have to look at the real criminals here, and we need the police and the international services and military to arrest these criminals. And if people believe, like, for example, like the Mahdi character that Alfred Weber was talking about, Islamic Mahdi character is like a little bit different view of that Shia and Sunni wise of We're looking at that, but this is a person, a preempted to the Christ, that's who's supposed to bring prosperity, that's supposed to bring peace and freedom to the planet, and supposed to be like a right-hand man to Jesus. Okay, and I think that if Obama looked himself in the mirror, I doubt that he could at least claim to be that type of person. You understand? So people needs to live by the example of being a good person to start with. And then by the leading as a good leader, you will have respect. And by honestly, no one respects Obama. And it's not because of his color, it's because of his action. And people say, oh, he's black. No, he's not black. His mother is white. I don't see his color. I think he's a very charismatic speaker. Normally, he's a very likable guy. The only thing that is not likable with him is his actions. And so the thing is this way, people have to start looking at this thing and, okay, he's a Muslim. Really, you are a Muslim by your action, not by what you claim to be. You know, the only religion that cannot claim to be something mystically or miraculously is being a Muslim, because a Muslim means you have to pray 5 times a day. You have to pay sadaqah, you have to do sadaqah, you have to, you know, be an active practitioner of the, you know, the teachings, submitted to the will of God. And a person like Obama, he's as far as where you can come from a Muslim you can do, as most of Muslims are. I would say that probably, without now having the whole Muslim world against me, I would say, without over-exaggerating, that maybe 15% of the whole world are actively practicing Muslim, and I've probably over-exaggerated. Because I've been in so many Muslim countries and I never saw one single Muslim almost when I was there. Very few with Muslim people in the Muslim countries. I will find more Muslims in the United States and Europe than I will find in the Muslim world. And the reason for that is because of their governments, their tyrannical, fanatic governments that is running their nations and forcing them to do things. And it's mainly these sick things that you see representing Islam is all based in their sick cultures. It's a tribal culture that is sick and twisted, that unfortunately Islam was not having possibility to throw out of their sick societies. But I believe that it's a time for revolution and a rebirth, and I hope and I pray that one day it will come a medic character in this society, in this world, to actually bring forward this type of utopia that the world needs. But I doubt that it will be Obama. I doubt it will be any of these world leaders that I've seen today. So far, they're all completely corrupt. And you have few people that, you know, standing up, you know, in this world. I think Xi Jinping and also, of course, Putin and some other leaders. Okay, but the problem we have, another disease we need to talk about, but that's another program, is corruption. Because that is, other than, you know, we have the biggest disease on the planet, which is actually killing the most, is ignorance. Number 2 problem in the world is corruption. Okay, and that is something that is a sickness that also needs to be removed from this planet. And because the whole world is built on corruption, then basically how can we defeat it? So we need to set ourselves out from corruption. We need to set ourselves out of ignorance, and first starting with you know, with the ignorance part, and follow up there with destroying this corruption that we see, because everything is built on corruption. And then we have the Pope, you know, whatever these Christian societies, and I believe actually the first people that would crucify Jesus if he returned today probably would be the Christians. Yes, then? And the problem here today is that we need to wake up to the reality that how sick and twisted and permanent retarded we have become. Okay, just accepting all this shit that we see all the time and all the divide and conquer situation that's going on. We should be united, Christian, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, Taoists, as one unit, united against this evil cabal, united against our corrupt politicians, and basically remove them once and for all. That's what I wanted to finish my statement with. And I know that, you know, Alfred has been a warrior on the side of truth for a long time, and I know that Mark is helping in all sense he can to build up the knowledge in the common man in America. And I think it's so much ignorance everywhere. And when you know, you can even, when you know, you can stand on an airport and you can spot the McDonald's people from a long distance. And you know, the foods are being corrupted. Everything is being corrupted. You understand? And I think that maybe this pain that I have is giving me some extra spice today in my speech. So, you know, If I'm sounding here like a,
Does it
you
seem
know,
to be affecting you? It doesn't seem to be restricting you at all. In fact, yeah, it's giving you an extra spice. And I just wanted to say, thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. That was just very impassioned speech. It's long, long, long overdue since you've been one of those rants. And I just want to say that, these topics of law are very complicated. They're very convoluted. These are very deep rabbit holes. And I don't think that that Alfred and Martin really, want to. I think this time to really discuss this is off the air because they're convoluted. These aren't easy. If it was so easy, everybody would be figuring this out. It's
or in a more extended roundtable.
Yeah, sure.
Not in a roundtable on geopolitics. I think it's very
sure. It's okay.
Skewed everything over.
It's okay, but I just want to say, because you're both incredible people, I have so much respect for all of you. And Martin, you are doing everything that you can to try to inform people and try to help teach critical thinking. And you're so far advanced in this that it's very hard to kind of realize that our viewers I'm going to just assume that our viewers are at different levels. So there's going to be some messages.
Most of our viewers are more intelligent than we are.
Oh, I'm not saying
more
that.
More evolved than we are.
I would agree with you. But what I'm saying is that for people who, when we do these GoldFish reports, they're not necessarily for people at the moment in time. I know that this is going to be an archive.
Most of our GoldFish reports are for whales.
And dolphins. But what I'm saying is that there's going to be people on their journey of waking up every single day who have different levels of knowledge. And when they look at our GoldFish reports, there's going to be some information they can take in, some information they're going to have to come back to. So they're not going to be, not everybody, and I was like this myself in my process of doing research, that, it took a long time to really understand what some of the things people were talking about, because it wasn't something, I didn't know everything about everything. So, it's something where you have to kind of, take it one step at a time in different levels. And Martin, I just wanted to bring it back on. We're at almost an hour and a half. I want to start kind of giving everybody some time to have some closing comments. And I want Martin to, if you're still there, Martin, let me unmute you. I don't know. Let me see. Are you there, Martin?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. So Martin, it's very hard. And I think we're all sharing the same frustration of trying to inform people and I think one of what I've seen with everybody here is the frustration of maybe the lack of initiative of people trying to find this information and educate themselves, wake themselves up, inform themselves so they can make choices and not, like what the ambassador said, do not consent to this. So let me just ask Martin, after all the other dialogue that we've been having, but if there's anything that you'd like to say that we haven't said yet, it's the floor is yours, Martin.
Well, I'd just like to comment on one of the things that my opinion, the ambassador had said something about, it's between life and death. Okay, my opinion is what's the difference when the point is the war is inevitable. It's impossible because the corporations want war. They have to have war. That's bottom line. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We can attempt to rally and stop the war and not participate, but we're so indoctrinated. There's so many people who are indoctrinated. I doubt that's going to will have that effect with the few people that we are contacting at this point. The thing I would like to say is, in my opinion, it's not a difference between life and death. It's a difference between taken to an internment camp during the time of war or being protected in your homes by the people you give the power to. And you said something about, can I have a case law to quote here? And I'll quote this case for you. It's called Bond versus the United States, 564 U.S. 2011. The framers concluded that allocation of powers between the national governments and the state enhances freedom. First, by protecting the integrity of the governments themselves, and second, by protecting the people from whom all governmental powers are derived. Now, that was stated by one of the justices in his opinion. Okay, now I have this this letterhead that I've created for the people I work with, and one of the things in the letterhead has a Latin phrase, and I can never speak Latin, so bear with me on this. It says, "Derivata protesta non protesta esse major primitiva." Okay, and what that translates to is, the power which is derived cannot be greater than from what it is derived. Meaning, if the governments get their power from the people, how can the governments have more power than where they got their power from? So what we need to understand, I'm going to go with my personal feelings, my personal beliefs here, is that we need to individually learn how to protect ourselves from the encroachment of these powers that we have given the authority to regulate our movements. And the only way to do that is by becoming this is a rock on the outside of Rockefeller Center. It states right on there, it states, control, it says, own nothing, control everything. And the only way you can do that is through trust law. If you can create a trust, and you can put yourself as a shield behind that trust, then you can create trust with these entities that you are having problems with, that are suppressing your abilities to function in a peaceful manner. And then you can then enforce those trusts using their own, and the thing we gave power to, their own authority.
The court systems, you mean?
Not only the court system, it's every company you have any interaction with. If you create a private trust between you and the electric company, and they breach that trust by shutting off your electricity, now you have the ability then to hold them accountable to the trust arrangement that you have created privately with them.
So what happened? We have a Declaration of Independence. Doesn't the United States people have a trust relationship with our elected leaders?
Yes, you do. But those elected leaders are only enforcing the corporate rule because the people have been asleep and not understanding how to hold these corporations accountable.
Okay. Because everything is corporations, like globally at this point. I mean, everything that Obama said in his speech was all about globalization, globalization, globalization. And it just seems like there's no identity of an individual anymore.
Well, there isn't, because we don't enforce our individuality. We accept that we are U.S. citizens subject to the rule of the U.S. And when you accept that authority, but you gave them that power. You initially gave them that governmental power. By not what? By the action of acquiescence, by not objecting to it, by not doing anything about it, you have basically said, oh, I agree.
Okay, so Martin, we have to do another GoldFish report on what you're talking about, because this is how we help ourselves. This is one way we start to help ourselves, is understanding the nature of the relationships that we have with the people who are, as you said, making, controlling the factors in our lives.
Let's take a basic. I ask you this all the time when I talk to you, and I want people to think about this. I want them to very, very, very. If you do anything else after this report, do one thing. Would you, in good conscience and good reason, create a system that is not beneficial to you? And most people in good conscience and good reason would say no. So don't you believe, and this is my belief, that every system that was ever created was beneficial to the person who created it? And if you can learn how that system works and make that system beneficial to you, as that person who created it made it beneficial to them, you will then take back the control factor that you need in order to control, remember, control everything, own nothing.
Right.
Control the systems that are now suppressing and guiding you and holding you back from having a peaceful existence on this planet.
I have to tell you, I'm so amazed. This is such a far out conversation, and everybody today is so far out. Martin, is that your closing comment, Martin? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine. That's my takeaway. I want everybody to think about that. Would you create a system that's not beneficial to you?
Okay. Think about that, folks, and really sit down and think about it. And, and now I'm going to go to Alfred, and I'm going to ask Alfred for your last, ideas, things you want to share, closing comments. I know it went by quickly. We're getting to about an hour and a half, and I don't want it to end. I think just what we talked about before we started recording was enough to just keep the conversation going. And, everybody here has the same conviction and heart to want to make this a better world, to want to inspire people, to teach, to help people, because we've all walked a difficult walk. We've all learned what we've come by learning the hard way, and humanity is at stake here, isn't it, Alfred?
Well, I'm very, very grateful to have been asked to be on this panel, because it really brought home, and especially Martin's, the ambassador and Martin's last talk, which brought back home the fact that Martin sits in the United States and is trying to protect his home. And I'm above the 49th parallel in Vancouver, Canada, where we're protected by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And we're in a still sane civil society where our prime minister was just down here and marched in the Gay Pride Parade here in Vancouver, and we're having a great time here. I mean, we're in 4 and 5D. I just got to tell you, folks. And we don't participate in large-scale war here. And our motto is God's country. That's our official motto, is God's country, and it's not the devil. It's the real God. Because I don't think that Canada was cosmically targeted that much. And I've been up here since for at least the last 20 years, kind of pushing out the devil from Canada. And what happened is that I think the chronography with the United States, the Aboriginals, you can see back here, the art here, that art back here was done by one of my housemates who was from Haida Gwaii here in BC. And we still have First Nations here. So even though the U.S. Constitution was based on the Iroquois Confederacy, it is a Native American confederacy. And I have Native American DNA in my DNA that was proved by the Smithsonian Geno 2.0 program that I sent my DNA to. So I'm not making up tales. And so you better, one of my favorite law school courses at Yale Law School was Native American law. And so Martin, this goes way beyond tribal law. We studied African tribal law, we studied Eskimo law. And so if you want to go down to the basis of American law, a lot of American law is based on Native American law, because the Constitution is basically the Iroquois Confederacy. And that's what's saving America, because what happened is that in my alma mater, Yale University, which was founded by a slaver named Elihu Yale. So you got Harvard, which is the light, and Yale, which is the dark of Elihu Yale. And in the dark, the cover story is that Skull and Bones was from a German secret society, which was in 1832. But the real story is that in 1776, the German Illuminati Society was founded in 1775, and the second chapter came over in 1776, founded at Yale the same year as the Declaration of Independence, and infiltrated the American Revolution. And so they infiltrated the entire Enlightenment experiment, which was the American Revolution, and it was all infiltrated by the Illuminati. So there's even stories that George Washington was chosen because he resembled a Rothschild. And what did George Washington do after he retired from the presidency? He went out to Ohio and started kicking all these tenants off of his land, and became kind of a mean old tenant farmer and slaver, and not slaver, all this stuff. So America's always been a fight between light and dark, and the Native American law has never been recognized, and it's where the greatest genocide of the Aboriginals happened, which hasn't happened in Canada. And so that I'm sitting here and I forget that I'm above the 49th parallel. I'm a dual citizen, and I'm looking down on the United States, which is about to go down into the black hole of tyranny. And there's my brother, Martin, and he's trying to stay safe inside his home because the Bill of Rights, which I taught at the University of Texas, has just been shredded. Okay, so that's all very important. And Canada's sitting here and they say, is that lunatic Trump going to invade us? Because what he's doing is he's building the Mexico wall because he thinks China's going to come over, make a deal with Mexico, and invade the US. So it's all about a land wall against the Chinese invasion that's going to come over to South America because they're all Chinese. They came over the land bridge, and that's the only way we're going to stop this Luciferic diabolical country where 34 million of them are multi-generational satanics. And Jay Parker, you can go to my radio program with Jay Parker that proves that, who was raised in a multi-generational family. So take that and put that in your pipes and smoke it. And I had a 1969 meeting with Governor Winthrop Rockefeller at the Yale Law School in the faculty lounge. He was Bill and Hillary Clinton's Arkansas sponsor because he was bringing Bill and Hillary a few years after me. As in class 67, then they're in class of 73. And he had already time traveled my book back through CIA secret time travel. This is a deep story. And people have to begin, if you're going to be an accomplished soul, to understand about the chronarchy, understand that the U.S. is a secret, satanic country on the world, and we, the starseeds in this country, have to rise up and bring all our illumination to the fore. And what I'd like to do is permission to send you all the links that back up everything I said so you could put it into the article so people don't think I'm a raving lunatic, which is a CIA line. Oh, Alfred is crazy. No, I'm not crazy. I am a researcher. That's all I am. Thank you very much. Much respect to everybody. And, in the age of Trump, you've got to become this reality TV, thing just to be heard. Thank you very much.
There you go, Alfred. No, thank you very much, all you gentlemen. I have to say.
Much respect to everybody.
Bravo, Alfred. Actually, to all of you guys, you did a fantastic job today because you really have the conviction. We're all coming from the same place, the same heart, and trying to approach this and solve this and crack it open from different angles. And today everybody's on fire. I just think it's great. I almost don't even want this interview to end, but I know that it has to end at some point. And you're right about the tribal law. You talking about clans, tribal law in terms of clans and things of that nature. Alfred, is that what you're referring to? Just so I can clarify.
No. I mean, I had this course in African tribal law, and it was an expert in all of the indigenous cultures. And like if you go into Zulu law, and we try, in the Zulu, and then in the West African tribes. And I spent a lot of time in West Africa with the Senefu that are in the Ivory Coast. I had spent time with the Prince of the Senefu and all this stuff. It was really interesting stuff. And then, but then we went into, Eskimo law, and the primitive legal systems are really very close. The tribe is sort of an expression of natural law and all the tribal rules. And it's a very interesting meld of anthropology and law and how they solve, what happens when a murder happens, how do they solve it and all that.
Exactly. Well, that's fascinating. Thank you, Alfred. And I think it's kind of like this is where people, for me, I kind of consider myself a professional student, because you always have to keep learning. You always have to keep educating yourself. You really have to, you have to keep teaching yourself. You have to keep educating yourself, because these are very complicated topics. And for our viewers, you just might have to stop and just spend a couple days researching a couple of things that were said here or there, that either Alfred said, the ambassador said. This interview is loaded and packed with facts, with topics for research, for everybody to try to connect the dots. This interview is packed with this kind of information. We've never had an interview like this before, where there's so much factual information that is worth researching. It's worth researching. It is not hyperbole. These are very experienced people here, offering humanity what they have learned, what they have experienced, what they have factual firsthand knowledge of in some cases, and in other cases. This is a GoldFish Report not to miss. And so spread this to your friends, spread this to your neighbors, give them a drink maybe while they're watching, so they don't get too much anxiety over what they're listening to, because we didn't even talk about the ETs that are behind it all anyway. So we'll have to do that for another one, right, Alfred? And I know that look, something's pushing an agenda that, we're going to talk about that artificial intelligence infestation and the PPAI and all that other, stuff that's really kind of forcing these world leaders to kind of close in on us and do what they will with us. So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for coming today. It's just been an incredible pleasure. It's been intellectually invigorating and stimulating. And by all means, it's really out of the love of our hearts. We truly want to give this information to viewers, because we want you to understand the world that you're living in, and to do your own research. I'm a researcher, Alfred's a researcher, Martin's a researcher, we're all researchers. So the thing to do is to take this information as a researcher yourself, be your own researcher, be your own critical thinker, and do your own research, okay? Our views, our opinions, their views and their opinions, we don't all agree. We may not have the same views and opinions at the GoldFish Report that our guests do. We may or may not have the same information, but we do provide a platform that allows people to present their research and to present their knowledge and experience, and for the purposes of informing people with the ambassador's war on ignorance. So I know Martin has a comment, and then I'm going to ask the ambassador for any other closing comments he may have. Go ahead, Martin.
Well, you made a comment that you were a continuing student. On the IRS form that you can mark exempt if you're a student?
Exempt.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me that before I registered mailed my revised tax return? Thanks a lot, Martin.
You're welcome. And I want to apologize if I stirred up any, I didn't mean to jump in and create chaos or anything. I get passionate about my feelings, and I tend to do that, and I apologize.
No, you have conviction, and if you don't have conviction, nobody else is going to have conviction, and you don't need to apologize. We're trying to have a vigorous debate. This is very academic in nature. This is very complicated, and I don't think we need to apologize, because I think we're here out of mutual respect, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. We're trying to get to the facts, and we're trying to understand this. And, Alfred's been in many courtrooms, so you've seen how much passion people have when they try to do these things. So I don't think we're doing anything. You don't need to apologize for anything, Martin, because I want to have you come back. Martin, will you come back and join us at another GoldFish Report sometime, please?
Yes, I will.
Oh, thank you. And Alfred, would you come back to it and do another GoldFish Report with us soon?
I would be honored.
Because we have something really special coming up. We have a very special satire edition, because once a year we try to do something a little bit funny, lighthearted, and a little bit I just say lighthearted for our viewers. And kind of this year is going to be a little bit more satirical in nature. Why not? When we look at the election we have going on, and we're going to try around the end of October, around Halloween time, kind of have a little fun with some of the crazy topics, crazy stories, crazy things that are going on in the alternative media. And boy, don't we know about that, Alfred. So I think, Alfred, would you join us for that?
That's going to be so much fun.
Yeah, we're going to be laughing the whole time. We're going to have a great time because no one's going to enjoy it more than us, because we've also been victims of all the disinfo that's been out there, not deliberately, and so we've sometimes had to, had to correct ourselves because we may have fallen short of having all of the information that we needed, but in good faith we went forward. So, Ambassador, I just want to thank you for really stimulating such a vigorous conversation today and bringing everybody together. Did you want to say something else, Martin, or were you done? Martin, I'm sorry. I just.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, Ambassador. What would you like to leave our guests with? What closing comments would you like to make?
I just wanted to say one thing is that many people, the work that I did, I was entitled to see a lot of things that many people are able to see. For example, you draw a passport of a person and you will find out every single bank account that person has had his whole life. It doesn't matter where it's kept, if it's in trust, it's in his name or any other's name, so everything pops up. It's only that sometimes they need a right to do something, to be able to go and use some information. They need some reason for that. And sometimes the government might fabricate the reason, but they need a reason for it. But to hide money in today's world is impossible. To hide something in today's world is also impossible. But what we need to do and need to understand here is that we are a part of a revolution, okay? And we have seen it in the past. I've been making speeches, and the speech has been hijacked or actually copied by some world leaders directly afterwards. I don't know if you remember when I had my Christmas speech and followed by the Pope's, Christmas speech being almost the same one day after, and the same thing during the New Year's speech. And so we know that you guys are listening. We know that the securities agencies are listening. We know that all different people are listening into this program. And I want you guys to take it into heart, because we are formally first most responsible for the creator, and then to our families. And I would like to say that, what would you say when your child would ask you, why didn't you do something? And I think that's a very, very important thing for people to take into consideration. The street law, which sometimes is better than normal law, you fuck up, you go to hell. You understand? You get, you go up in the face and you're a weak man, you get beaten up. And many of these guys are very weak, but they have a lot of bouncers and protectors and bodyguards to protect these evil, weak people. And so, and the thing is this way, like you were talking about Rockefeller saying that own nothing and rule everything. And that's what they've been doing. I mean, the assets of the world belongs to the family, and they are the controllers and managers. And I think they have gone high-make for a long, long time now. And it's time to replace them, or that they need to be repurposed. And I think it's time that this, new world order will be replaced with another order that becomes, a caretaker for the world instead of, an aggressor on the planet. And I believe that 555 will overcome 666, and I believe that we will be the change. And like I stated before, united, we will never be defeated. But if we just go and hide and blame others and blame someone else or hope someone else will do it for us, nothing will ever happen. And I think that is what is my final message today. And I want to thank all the guests that came here. I really respect everything that you had to say, and God bless you all. And I look forward to see you all soon. And now I will be dealing with my pain, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit better.
As soon as the interview ends, I'm sure you're going to feel much better.
I actually considered to go to the hospital, but anyway, let's see.
Well, look, thank you so much. And again, the ambassador inspired an incredible conversation today. And I also wanted to just say, I think the distinction that the ambassador, that everybody here is making, is that there's a difference between uniting and becoming a one world order. I think the distinction is that we want to be united as one race, as the human race. And we can't keep allowing the religion and the languages and the geography to divide us. But that's the whole game plan. That's the game, the playbook. And it's been working. And once people really realize this, we're going to, we'll be united as one race. Can you imagine living on another planet and looking down at this planet and just saying, why are they aiming missiles at each other? They're all living on one planet together. We really have to get to the point where we realize that we're being played. I don't understand what else it's going to take people to realize this. And we have to wait for President Reagan's speech to come to fruition. To what we have, we all see these UFOs in the sky. I've seen them myself. I mean, most of them are very friendly. Some may not be. But we have to realize that we are one race. And we have to stop with the prejudice. We have to stop with racism. We have to stop being manipulated into it, because I think that we're being manipulated into it. So like the ambassador, like Alfred, like Martin, and so many other people are saying, we have to unite. Let's unite the light. Unite the light that's in your heart, because we're human beings. We are here. We are created out of love. And anything other than that, I believe, my personal belief is that we're being manipulated otherwise. So I just wanted to say thank you to the ambassador. Thank you to Martin. Thank you to Alfred for coming. I just don't even want this to end. The ambassador has to leave now. So he's just saying thank you to everybody. God bless, he's saying. And folks, please subscribe to our YouTube page, The GoldFish Report. You can follow us on Facebook at The GoldFish Report. We also have a blog, the WordPress blog at The GoldFish Report. I also want to just reiterate that our guests can't make this happen. They can't bring you the information without support. There's many people who come on as guests, maybe even as whistleblowers, informants, or other researchers who need and rely on support from our viewers. And this is a private funded entity, the GoldFish Report, but our guests, in order to bring this information and this programming to you, it's important to support our guests and what they're doing, to go and support News Inside Out, keep them on the air, keep them going, help to make a contribution so they can continue their operation. Continue with all of our other guests. We've had, Rob Potter, who has come on, who is a friend of the GoldFish Report, with his The Promise Revealed. He can only come on and bring his information if he can, make ends meet and doing his job and what he's doing. Cobra, we've had Captain Max Steele join us. Everybody who has participated in the GoldFish Report has come freely. Nobody's ever paid to come on the GoldFish Report. That's not what this is about. GoldFish Report has never taken a dime in contributions from anybody. So we're here trying to do a public service for people, and our guests are who give us something to say. We have a platform, and if they don't come, then we have nothing to share, nothing to bring to people. So I just wanted to inform our viewers of that and try to remind our viewers that it's always appreciated. And of course, it's really the only way to have to publicly fund and help the guests who come on our report to keep the programming going. If you like the programming that we provide, please make a contribution and help our guests bring to you more information that you want to hear. So having said that, again, just thank you. But from the bottom of my heart, I love you guys very, very much. Martin, Alfred, the ambassador, thank you so much for such a wonderful and vigorous dialogue today. And look out for our new GoldFish reports. And by the way, I'm going to include a copy of the text of President Obama's farewell address to the UN, in addition to a copy of George Washington's farewell address, so you can compare and contrast it yourself and decide if you think this country is going in the right direction. And I think we've had enough conversation on the panel today to decide for you to think about maybe what you can or should be doing about it yourself. I'm also going to attach whatever links that Alfred would like to provide or any that Martin would like to provide. And so they will all be attached in the description section of this video. And having said that, I want to thank our viewers for watching, and this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.